Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're doing another world lore video, this time about Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines, which was a cartoon that was made by a lot of the same people who brought us classics like G.I. Joe and the Transformers. But before we get into it, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, and leave us a comment. We've got a great community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to this one takes place in Oregon in 1985 in the mansion of Adrian Ravenscroft, an elderly billionaire who has a map that reveals the secret location of a fountain of youth. As a brief aside, in our game world, we say that just as there are multiple Lazarus pits, there are also multiple fountains of youth, partially because the concept pops up repeatedly in pop culture and no two accounts are the same. Anyways, so a beautiful auburn-haired woman named Jennifer McGraw steals the villain's map and runs out of his mansion. And a group similar to the Dreadnoks from G.I. Joe chases after her on motorcycles. Which brings us to the main plot. Jenny runs to the local Coliseum where a monster truck rally is taking place. A blue monster truck called Bigfoot is being driven by a blonde-haired cowboy named Yank Justice. He is a hero akin to Duke from G.I. Joe or Matt Tracker from Mask. There's another monster truck here called Black Gold, which has a glossy black paint job and is driven by beautiful twin sisters named Red and Redder, who, as their names imply, have long red hair. They actually both look a lot like Firestar from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. The Orange Blossom Special is an orange monster truck operated by Professor D and Dilly, his pet armadillo, who, by the way, was named after the man who wrote this cartoon, Flint Dille, who is actually a friend of mine. Flint and I have been friends for years now. Anyways, so Jenny runs out into the arena with the map, and Black Gold almost runs her over. The twins narrowly miss Jenny, then stop their truck and get out. They are both dressed kind of like April O'Neil from the 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. One is wearing a yellow jumpsuit like April wears, except hers is zipped all the way up, while the other one is wearing a white jumpsuit. They yell at Jenny and ask what the big idea is. Yank Justice gets out of Bigfoot and says stadium security will straighten this all out. But Professor D says they are all overlooking the fact that the girl needs help. Just then, one of the other monster trucks here is stolen by one of Ravenscroft's goons, a man named Ernie Sly, who, by the way, Flint named him after his friend, who is the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, so Ernie and a couple other henchmen in motorcycle helmets get in the truck and chase Jenny with the intent of running her over. So the heroes get back in their vehicles, and Yank Justice hooks the rear bumper of the bad guy's truck and pulls it with Bigfoot backwards against their will. The bad guys then rush Yank, who starts punching them out. And he's punching guys out with one hit each. And while he's fighting them, Jenny hides the map under the driver's seat of Bigfoot. Ernie then jumps her, but she puts that hook over his belt so that when Bigfoot drives away, it pulls him off of her. The next morning, Ernie reports into Adrian Ravenscroft, who tells him his incompetence is costing Ravenscroft time. And he's so old, time is the one thing he can't afford to spare. So Ernie puts on a supervillain costume that looks like something out of Mad Max, as do the other henchmen. They figure out where the heroes will be next and they head that way. They attach sticks of dynamite to large trees that line the highway. And when the TNT goes off, the trees fall into the road in an attempt to stop the vehicles so the villains can jump the drivers. But of course, the monster trucks are able to climb over these obstacles, and the drivers discuss options via CB radio, settling on the idea that if they don't get to Las Vegas, they'll miss their next show. So they decide to continue on as Jenny watches from a nearby mountain through her binoculars. The villains then chase the trucks using their motorcycles in trikes. When a motorcycle pulls up next to Black Gold, Red and Redder throw things like nail polish onto the visors of their helmets, blinding them. So we see a blind biker eat a tree at 65 miles an hour. Another biker gets a blanket thrown over his face, and he goes off of a bridge into a river. Another one eats it after oil is poured on the road in front of him. Another goon busts into Bigfoot and wrestles with Yank. And this is where something weird happens. Bigfoot's steering wheel seems to turn all by itself as the road curves, so as to avoid going over a cliff. And while Bigfoot seems to be driving itself, Yank and the thug duke it out. Yank punches him, and he winds up in a pond on the side of the road. Meanwhile, Ernie Sly uses nitrous to race ahead to the next town. He goes to Al's garage and kills Al. He takes off his Mad Max costume and pretends to be Al. So when the muscle machines arrive in town needing repairs, this is where they stop. Red and Redder get to work fixing the undercarriage of Black Gold, while Ernie Sly slips out and gives the signal to another thug who's in some nearby construction equipment. That thug, in turn, attacks the heroes with a wrecking ball, hitting the side of the garage with it. So once again, Bigfoot hooks the enemy and pulls. Bigfoot moves in such a way that the wrecking ball swings back into the construction vehicle itself, and in classic 1980s action movie fashion, it explodes. Ernie, still pretending to be Al, says whoever the villains are, they just put him out of work. So Yank Justice hires him to go on the road with them as a mechanic, not realizing who he really is. The villain accepts, and they get back on the road. While Yank is driving, Ernie gets out a can of soda and then shakes it up suddenly, spraying it in Yank's face, then sucker punches him. As Yank struggles to keep Bigfoot going straight, he punches Sly so hard he falls out of the vehicle. Ernie is wearing a watch with a homing device, so more villains are headed this way, as Yank stops Bigfoot and attacks Ernie, punching him repeatedly. Their fight is interrupted by more thugs, this time driving a dune buggy with the Ravenscroft logo on it. Ernie gets in the dune buggy and the villains get away. So the heroes head on to Las Vegas, where later that day, Grave Roller is given top billing. Yank takes it up with the guy who made the call, and he tells Yank The Bigfoot is yesterday's news, and Grave Roller is the future. So Yank asks for a one-on-one pulling contest with pink slips on the line. So the boss approves it, and that night, Bigfoot and Grave Roller both back up to a pool of liquid, and their pulling hooks are connected. The tractor pull begins, and both trucks are evenly matched. Red and Redder notice that the pool of liquid is actually acid, as Grave Roller cheats and drops a gadget under its truck bed that gives it more traction and pulling power. So Grave Roller slowly pulls Bigfoot towards the acid pool. Red yells at Yank, warning him that there's acid in the pit. So Yank allows the pulling chain to drop into the acid, weakening it, then pulls again, and the chain snaps, and both trucks speed away from the acid in opposite directions. Grave Roller tries to escape, and Bigfoot chases after it. On the streets of Las Vegas, Grave Roller turns to fight, and the front end of the vehicle transforms, revealing flamethrowers that spew fire at Bigfoot. Bigfoot backs up out of harm's way, then circles around, ultimately driving over Grave Roller, crushing it. As its driver, Ernie, tries to run away, Yank chases him down and beats him. As he's doing this, Jenny searches Bigfoot for the map, and Ernie points at her. So Yank tells Ernie he never wants to see him again. Then he runs over to Jenny. But she steals Bigfoot, which still has the towing cable hanging down in the back. So Yank gets into the truck bed as it's driving away. Then he climbs in through the window and brings Bigfoot to a stop. He asks Jenny what she's doing, and she refuses to comply. So he brings up the penalty for Grand Theft Auto, and she tells him a little bit about the map. She says it's her map, but the heroes say since it almost cost them their lives, they're all in this together. Meanwhile, Ernie Sly reports in to Adrian Ravenscroft, and the old man says he's getting tired of these constant failures. The burly chauffeur offers to kill Ernie, but the old man says he's giving Ernie another chance, warning him not to screw up next time. So time passes, and the heroes drive east. Yank Justice tries to make small talk with Jennifer McGraw, but she comes off as snooty and thinks she's above things like monster trucks, viewing them as low class and beneath her. While driving east through cornfields in Oklahoma, the heroes are attacked on all sides by combines. Once again, Bigfoot uses its towing cable, and one by one, the harvesters are destroyed. The heroes are talking after the battle when a new guy named Close McCaw drives up in a souped-up, modified black 4x4 hot rod of his own creation. He introduces it as Warlord and offers to give them a hand. But they say they've got enough going on already. They thank him, but decline his offer. They then continue on, and while driving through Louisiana that night, they get pulled over by cops who arrest them on trumped up charges, lock them up, impound their vehicles, then search for the map. The cops find the map, and Ernie tells Jenny to translate the language for them or rot in this jail cell for the next 50 years. Just then, that souped up hot rod from earlier shows up, and McCall busts them all out of jail. Bigfoot pulls the bars off of the room where Jenny was at with the map, and she jumps into Yank's arms, kind of liking it. Then the heroes all drive away. Redder thinks McCall is cute, so Red says, "Oh, brother." Smokies on their tail as the heroes head for a bridge that is slowly being raised. Everyone jumps it except for Bigfoot, which ends up in the water. Thankfully, Bigfoot's tires float, so Bigfoot treads water and makes it to where the other heroes are. Ernie Sly radios the old man and says it doesn't matter that the heroes escaped because the girl translated the map. So the villains go to the coordinates that she gave them, and the fountain that they find there is the wrong fountain. So again, the chauffeur offers to waste Ernie, but Ravenscroft says he doesn't have to kill him. Firing him will do. So the chauffeur throws Ernie in the fountain, then gets back in the limo where the old man tells him to activate Barbarian. That night, the heroes are sitting around a campfire, and Jenny is telling them about Adrian Ravenscroft, who most people think is already dead. She says for the past 20 years, he's been a total recluse, running his empire from hidden offices around the world. Just then, fan boats glide through the swamp to where the camp is, and ninjas attack the heroes with flaming arrows. So the heroes scramble to their vehicles and peel out. As they drive away from the water, they think they see a building through the fog, but when they get closer, they realize it's not a building. It's the world's newest, biggest monster truck slash death machine. So the heroes head closer to the water, but those ninjas start shooting arrows with sticks of dynamite duct taped to them. So the heroes head back towards the giant black truck, and from its hubcaps, poles extend, each one ending in blades a la Ben-Hur. Its driver says, "Taste the wrath of Barbarian." Then the spiked bumper transforms into a battering ram, and Barbarian attacks Bigfoot, speeding forwards. Yank gets on the CB radio and says to let the woman go. This is between you and me. But Barbarian's driver says he grants no mercy. Barbarian overpowers Bigfoot and shoves it off a cliff where it lands on its side. Barbarian's driver is Adrian Ravenscroft's chauffeur. He calls his boss and says he finally defeated Bigfoot. And Ravenscroft tells him to hurry up and grab the map. So the chauffeur gets out of Barbarian and walks over to where Bigfoot is. Yank punches him. And up until now, Yank is like one punch knockouts, right? But when he punches the chauffeur takes no damage. So they have a David and Goliath style fight where the chauffeur is Goliath. So Jenny gets in Barbarian and puts a crowbar on the gas pedal. As Barbarian drives off into the night, the chauffeur chases after it, not wanting to have to explain to Ravenscroft that he lost the big secret weapon. So the heroes pull Bigfoot out of this hole that it's in and then continue on their way. The next day, the heroes go to a junkyard with jets and tanks and all sorts of vehicles here. Yank finds an even bigger pair of wheels and modifies Bigfoot. So now it's bigger and badder than before. Red and Redder say with Bigfoot's new abilities, even Barbarian doesn't stand a chance. Yank says not to butter him up, though, because as soon as he's done, he's leaving. Jenny doesn't want him to go, so she finally tells everyone what the map is leading them to. She reads from it and says that Ponce de Leon died with his men except for one who found the fountain in Florida. He says old men drink and are made young, while weak men drink and are made strong. But the man who wrote the map was killed by tribesmen with arrows, and the map was found in his grave 6 months ago. Just then, Barbarian shows up. Everyone gets in their vehicles, and one of Ravenscroft's men uses an electromagnet to pick up the Orange Blossom Special and drop it into a car crusher. McCall drives up to the crusher in his hot rod, while Barbarian gets ready to ram into Black Gold. Bigfoot Mark II slams into the side of Barbarian, though, shoving it sideways into a tall pile of junked vehicles. Black Gold destroys the building where the controls are for the car crusher, saving the life of Dee and Dilly. Meanwhile, Barbarian drives into Bigfoot, ramming him, doing damage. So Bigfoot jumps off a nearby pile of cars like a wrestler off the top turnbuckle, and it comes down hard on Barbarian's roof, caving it in. Barbarian has a battering ram on the front, spikes on the side, and a reinforced rear assembly, but nobody expected it to be attacked from above. The cab of the truck is caved in, and then Bigfoot drives off of it. Gasoline meets sparks, and Barbarian explodes. The chauffeur escaped, though, before the explosion, and he grabs Jenny. McCall sees this and chases the limo in his hot rod, but the limo has James Bond style gadgets. So it uses smoke and oil slicks, forcing McCall off the road. The limo drives over the Florida state line. The heroes are right behind him. Ravenscroft's limo uses mask technology, so it turns around and it transforms into an alternate mode. The rear tires transform into monster truck like proportions, while the hood area transforms into a ramp. A couple of the heroes hit the ramp and are flipped. The limo then transforms again into a third configuration. So now the front wheels match the back wheels, and the ramp hood retracts, revealing twin missile launchers. Remote controlled missiles are fired, but Jenny kicks the controls and the missiles go off course, missing Bigfoot. Jenny bails out, and the chauffeur offers to go after her. Ravenscroft cuts his losses and says she matters little now, and orders the chauffeur to take him to the Fountain of Youth. So the villains speed off, and the heroes follow them. But the whole area is full of booby traps. McCall is the first to trigger one, and a statue topples over onto his car. Black Gold is next, doing more or less the same thing, getting hit by stone pillars. Meanwhile, Orange Blossom Special gets hit by a huge ballista. So it's just Bigfoot who makes it all the way, reaching the Fountain of Youth right after Ravenscroft became young and very strong. Ravenscroft tells his chauffeur to get lost, saying he doesn't need him anymore. Then he gets into his monster truck limo and attacks Bigfoot. Ravenscroft screams that he will kill Yank Justice. The two monster trucks duel, and in the end, the limo is wrecked when Ravenscroft triggers a booby trap and a cannon shoots his vehicle. So Ravenscroft runs away, and as he runs off into the Florida swamp, he is surrounded by alligators who, as Yank Justice puts it, have a nice lunch. Which brings us to the epilogue. With all the traps sprung, there is now a hole that has appeared, and inside of it is basically what looks like a treasure room from a game of Dungeons and Dragons. There are chests of gold and everything else that the heroes will need to repair and upgrade their vehicles. Yank Justice just walks away, though, as Red and Redder ask why he doesn't want any of the gold. Yank says being rich isn't his style. So Jennifer McGraw, who is fully in love with him now, gets in Bigfoot with him, and they talk about what comes next. So she puts her head on his shoulder and he drives off into the sunset. And that was it for Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines. I owned several of the toys, which, if I remember correctly, were made by Play School, which in turn was owned by Hasbro. And I watched this cartoon every chance I got when I was a kid. I am super nostalgic for it, and I love it. Hopefully, you enjoyed hearing about it too. If so, as always, smash like, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave us a comment. And from all of us here at the longest running superhero role playing game on earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure.